Hey everyone, it's Stacey. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe. In today's video, I'll be showing you how I study my Bible plus my quiet time routine. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So I usually do my quiet times in the morning, so about 2 hours before I start school, because I just find that's the best time for me to do it so that I won't be rushed and I just have all the time for God. And it's also a great way to start your day. So when I do my quiet time, I don't have my phone or my laptop or anything with me. I just remove all distractions because I tend to get distracted when I have those things with me. And I start off my quiet time by praying and just giving everything over to God and asking Him to lead me during this time. And I just feel like this is a very important thing that we should all be doing, like during our Bible studies and our quiet times, just praying first and asking God to lead us. Then after that, I just literally just sit and talk to God like I talk to a friend, and I just like give Him all my worries and I just tell Him everything that's on my mind and I don't like filter anything. After that, then I just spend some time listening to God, because it's important that we do this, because we're always like talking to God, telling Him all our prayers, telling Him everything that's on our mind, but we also need to be just listening to Him and listen to what He has to tell us. And this can be a bit hard because we feel like we want to be doing something, but it gets easier as you like incorporate it as an everyday thing that you would do. And then after that, I have this thankfulness jar that I made quite a while ago, which I basically just put everything I'm thankful for, and I'll literally just pick something out from it and then just thank God for whatever I pick out. So then after I've done all of that, I'll start reading my devotions. So I have 3 devotions that I usually read. The first one is Jesus Calling. This is very helpful. If you don't have it, I would advise that you buy it because it's literally been a lifesaver for me. It's basically like letters from God to you. It's just very personal and I really like reading this. You can also find the Jesus Calling for whatever day you're in online as well. All you have to do is search up Jesus Calling and whatever day that you are in, and it will just come up and you can just read that for the day if you don't want to buy it. Then the next devotion I read is called Word for You. This is by UCB, and if you live in the UK, you can get it posted to you every 3 months for free. If you live outside the UK, you can still sign up to get it emailed to you every day. This has really been helpful for me. It's like very practical. It basically starts off with a verse and then the devotion and then like a what now part, and it's just very practical and relevant to our everyday lives. And the last devotion that I read is 3-minute devotions for teen girls. They have loads of different types. Have one for guys, for boys, for women, for men. They have loads of different types. And this is just, again, very practical. And sometimes I like tell you stories of their own personal lives and things that they've been through. And I've just really enjoyed having this. So after I've read all my devotions, this is when I start my Bible study. Before I start, I will just again pray and ask God to lead me and ask God to show me what He wants me to read for that day, because I don't want to be reading what I want to read. I want to read what God wants me to read. And after I've prayed, then I read whatever I feel God's leading me to read. And when I've read that, then I go through and I highlight the verses that stood out to me. Then I usually write the date on top of the chapter just so I can remind myself what day I did that, and I can go back and find a writing from my journal in that day, which I will explain in more detail later in the video. Usually when I read my Bible, I like to read it in different translations because it just gives me a better understanding of the verse or the book that I decide to read for that day. My favorite translations that I usually like to read are the NIV. That one is very simple, but my Bible is a Good News Bible, and that one is very, very simple. So if you're like a beginner in reading the Bible, I would really recommend using that. And I usually use the Amplified Bible because that just explains everything in more detail and it's just very easy to understand as well. So occasionally, sometimes when I do my Bible studies, I have margins inside my Bible, so I would just like rewrite the verse in bold and in gel pen so that it stands out to me when I'm flicking through my Bible. Sometimes I write quotes that have to do with the verse, or sometimes I just rewrite parts of the verses. So once I've done reading my chapter for that day, then I would just go through and I would write questions down. So by that I mean basically I just write questions that has to do with what I read down for myself, and then I answer them later when I'm writing in my journal. And this is just a very practical way to apply the Bible to your life. If you want a more detail of tips that I use to apply the Bible to my life, then I will link a video up in the cards at the top so you can watch that. So after I've done everything, and this is when I start journaling. So I have 3 different types of journaling kind of structures that I do. The first one is verse by verse. So this is basically when I'm reading something like Lamentations or Proverbs, where like the verses have nothing to do with each other and then kind of like not linked. Then I usually use this method, which is basically just when I write the verse number and then I just write what I learnt from it, and then I go into the next verse that I highlighted and then write what I learnt from it, and so on and so on. And the second one that I use is called section by section, and this is basically when I'm reading something like in the Gospels, and when it has sections with headers on the top, and I'll usually use those headers and just write the header down and then write exactly what I learned from that section. Then the next one that I use is usually when I'm reading something like a stories, maybe like in Genesis and Exodus. This is basically just like an overall summary of what I've learned from that story. This is used, again, as I said before, for like stories and like in Genesis, Exodus, like the Samuels and just things like that, because it's kind of hard to use the verse by verse method for that. So once I finished writing whatever method I choose to write based on what I've read, then I will go underneath and I'll write my answers to the questions that I've already written on my post-it note previously. And this is another way of applying the Bible to your life, and basically just evaluating yourself and finding ways that you could change yourself. The last question I always put is, what will you do now? What will you do now that you've read this, and what will you change in your life? So after I finished writing everything, then I'll just go back and read one day from one of my writings I've done in the past, and I just find this very helpful because sometimes I'm learning from my younger self. It's just very interesting just to read what I've written before. So then after I've done that, that's basically the end of my Bible study, and then I'll just go back and read a Psalms or a Proverbs. Previously I was going through the 30 sayings in Proverbs, so every day I would read one saying, but now I'm going through 1 Corinthians 13, so every day I read something about love and then I apply that to my life. Then after I've done, I will just pray and thank God for everything during this time that I spent with him, and I would just ask him to lead me during the day. So that is basically my quiet time routine, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video and got some ideas for your own quiet time routine. If you're not already subscribed, then please do so that you won't miss a video when I upload it. But for now, God bless and goodbye.